Well, hello friends and welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. Today I am not in my own home, as maybe you can tell if you're familiar. I am filming from a little beach getaway that my mom, my grandmother, me, and my two daughters have taken, and we are having so much fun so far. We had a long travel day yesterday, so today we're just taking it slow this morning. We're gonna go to the beach later. We explored some of the little pier village last night and it was so much fun. But it got me to thinking kind of about how to travel and take trips on a low income budget. So I will say that this looks a bit different for us now than it did like 7 years ago when my husband Nicholas and I first got married, because at that time we had just bought a house. We did not have kids, so we were like, now's the time to travel. You know, that's what everybody was telling us anyways, but we weren't making like hardly any money, and we were just in entry-level positions and trying to save up, trying to be wise, but also trying to live our life to the fullest. So we had some little tricks that we put into place, and it actually allowed us to travel quite a bit and do some really, really cool stuff early on in our marriage. So I wanted to share some of that with you. It does look a bit different now because if you've been around here, then you know that we are not single income. I work part-time at my daughter's preschool, but we rely on my husband's income to pay our bills, to take care of us, to provide for us from month to month. Therefore, anything that I make is simply in addition to, it's extra, it's stuff that we can use for savings, it's stuff that we can use for fun, it's, you know, things like that. So that is a lot of what this trip has been paid for with, is my income. And I'm just very grateful that we're in a place where we can do that. It's not come easily. It's something where, just for anyone who's new here, we did sell our old house, downsize, cut our mortgage in more than half. We buy used cars that are reliable but not fancy and shiny. We don't have payments on our cars. We don't do credit cards. This whole like have trips on a low income budget, at no point am I going to recommend getting a credit card. So let me just throw that out there. I do know that some people get credit cards because you can get a lot of reward points with those, and then sometimes those points can pay for a hotel or a flight or whatever it may be that the reward is in that system. But we have never done that. Not to say that we never will, but I just know myself, and I have to be extremely cautious, like overly cautious with credit cards. And so I just don't know that I want to even open that door. But at some point, I mean, we've talked about it in the past, but what would most likely happen is we would use that card to like pay some of our bills and then turn around and pay off the card with the cash that we have set aside for those bills. So that way we're getting the points, but really not keeping anything on the card. And I know that for like credit and things like that, that's here or there. People have different opinions on whether you should leave a little balance, whether you shouldn't. I don't know. I'm just here to say that to be financially secure, I know that I don't really need a credit card in my possession. So when we were first married, the trip that comes to mind is our very first vacation that we took together. We got married in March. We rented a basement apartment for about the first 6 months of our marriage, and then we moved into our first home that we were owners of in August. Now, our move-in day was like August 11th or something, and August 12th we had a trip planned. So we moved all of our boxes in, locked the doors, and left for a week. And so it was like exciting but not exciting at the same time. But then we got to come home to a brand new house that we got to set up. It was kind of exhausting, if I'm being honest, but when you're newlyweds, you do all kinds of exhausting things and call it fun. So with this first trip, we planned ahead for it. So first of all, it was not an ideal trip for a lot of people. We did a road trip to Maine, and like I said, we were newlyweds. It was exhausting, but we called it fun, and it was a lot of fun. It was just the two of us. We took turns driving on the way there, on the way back. My husband drove like the whole way, bless his heart. But we broke it up like halfway. I think we stopped in Delaware and spent the night in a hotel room, and then we drove on to Maine the next day. And then we ended up staying in Maine in a place called Ellsworth. It was a very cute and decent, safe Airbnb that I had found, and it was like the upstairs of an ice cream shop. It was the cutest thing, and they had turned an old house into this ice cream shop on the bottom floor, Airbnbs on the second floor. So it was, each room was rented out to different individuals, but I think we were in that location for 3 nights, and most nights that we were there, we were the only ones actually renting. One of those reasons was because we went during the week, and it was in August. So a lot of schools had already went back into session. A lot of people were not taking time off work because it was not like around a holiday. My husband, we're having a lot of fun. My husband was in law enforcement at the time. He took a break off in between, but he was in law enforcement at the time. And so his schedule already kind of lent itself towards being weird. And so he had more days off during the week than he would have a weekend. But I guess that might be one of my first points, is to go on vacation when other people aren't. One, because it's a great opportunity to avoid a lot of the crowds, but you also get much better rates on, oh my goodness. Annie, stop! You also get much better rates on where you're staying, depending on the time of year, possibly on airfare, and just a number of things. I could tell you several different trips we've went on and compare like whether it was in season or out of season that we went, and the difference that it made was just astronomical. So for this particular trip to Maine, we also could have flown. That would have been much simpler, much easier. We didn't have kids. We could have just had a carry-on and not had to worry about lugging a bunch of stuff, but we were just really looking at saving costs and spending time together, and this allowed us to do that. So it was a ton of fun. I should also say this was not our very first trip that we had taken. We went on our honeymoon in March, right after our wedding, but part of that was paid for by family and part of it was paid for by us, and it was much more local. But even with that, like, we did not choose a large all-inclusive getaway for 7 days. Like, I think our honeymoon was 4 days, and we went to the mountains. We just got a little cabin, and it was the sweetest, sleepiest, snowiest getaway for just the two of us. We had a little fireplace that you turned on with a switch. It was like electric, I'm pretty sure, but there was actually a heater on it, so it blew heat. And it was just so cozy and so fun. And then the last night of that, we actually stayed at the Omni Grove Park Inn in Asheville, which was such a treat. It was like a once in a lifetime thing probably for us. I mean, I would love to go back, but the cost of that per night, there's a reason we only stayed one night, you know? So maybe you do things that aren't quite as ideal, that other people are kind of like, that doesn't really sound like the vacation that I would want. But if it's what you want and it is a workaround for some of the costs, then I think that is the absolute best thing that you can do. Also, like I said, going when other people aren't. To piggyback on that, we went the following year to Banff, Alberta, to like Western Canada and the Canadian Rockies. We did that trip in March, and it was such a winter wonderland. Clearly by now maybe you see that we prefer cooler weather to warmer, so we are not super beach people, and I think a lot of the beach vacations get a ton of your money. So we'll get into that in a minute, and maybe how to avoid that downfall or money pit, however you want to phrase it. But we went to Banff in March, and I kid you not when I tell you that we had such a nice condo. It was like a kitchen and living area, and then a single bedroom and a single bathroom, but it was like luxury with a view that was worth $1 million. And I will put a picture of her on the screen because everybody needs to see this. We actually got there at dark to our condo, and we did not realize what kind of view we had, because you just never know with Airbnb listings. Like, is that actually from that balcony's window, or is that from like outside in the parking lot somewhere? It's just hard to tell. And we were so pleased. Like, I woke my husband up when we woke up the next morning. I was like, honey, look out the window, this is gorgeous. And it was so awesome. We paid like $87 a night for this place, and let me tell you, that was a steal. We stayed in Canmore, which is right outside of Banff, but I personally liked Canmore better. I just thought that it was cleaner and nicer, and there was like an Olympic training stadium not far from us for winter sports. So we went and watched people practice and train, and it was so fun. So of course, some of the things were closed that, you know, maybe we would have done if we'd went in peak season. Like obviously all of the beautiful blue lakes were iced over, but then we got to walk on them and watch people play hockey on them or skate on them. And it was just like a totally different vibe. And if you're going for a once in a lifetime thing like we probably did, then maybe that's not your preference. But for us, we thought that sounds like a really cool trip. It's a really good deal, and let's just see what happens. And it was so amazing. That was probably my favorite trip by far. So also early on in marriage, when we were trying to really be strategic about planning and saving for these trips, like I said, my husband was in law enforcement, so he was able to pick up some extra jobs outside of his typical shifts and make some extra money. And when he did that, all of that money went straight to our vacation fund. I couldn't really work extra jobs or like get a ton of overtime at my job. I was working for our church, so it just felt like kind of wrong, you know. But he could, and he made extra money. And then my job in all of this was kind of to designate and very, very meticulously plan out what we were going to do. So we did not do a ton of spontaneous adventures on our vacations. If that's stressful to you, then I'm sorry. I know some people think like if you go on vacation, you shouldn't have to think about anything. You don't need to worry about money. You don't need to worry about what you're going to do, where you're going to be, what you're going to wear, all these things. But for me, I have found that when I plan things out, not like we have to stick hard and fast to a time schedule or anything, but when I have a pretty good idea of what we're going to be doing, how many times we're going to be eating out, how many times we're going to be cooking wherever we're staying or what have you, then I just save a lot more money because it's more organized. I'm less likely to just swipe a card out of convenience. And it's just, you get everything done up front. Like when you get there, you go and buy the groceries for the meals that you're going to cook. Like I already knew that we were going to do spaghetti dinner one night, hamburgers another. And so I had all the ingredients that I needed because we went to the store the first day we were there. And then we didn't have to go again. Like I only grocery shopped once for that week, and I did not have to stress over it after that. Of course, we always want to explore the local food fair and get a taste of where we are and like have the full experience. So when we were in Maine, like we went and we ate lobster and we had the Maine blueberry pie. And when we were in Canada, we went to an Austrian restaurant when we went to swim in some hot springs nearby. And so we explored the areas, but we knew when we were going to be doing that. And we kind of based our adventures around those foods and vice versa, like the foods around those adventures. We just worked everything together. At times, we even paper clipped the exact amount of money, not exact, but the roundabout amount of money. So like, granted, this was 2018, 2019, so it's probably look a bit different now, but we grouped like $200, $300 together for gas, and then $200, $300 together for food. And we only spent for those designated items from that designated fund. And that helped a lot because we weren't trying to, like we had a very visual representation of what we were spending. I had planned it before, so it should have been quite accurate. We shouldn't have ran out. If we had a huge surplus, even better. But that was really, really helpful for us. And so we have done some beach trips, especially as we've been married longer, especially as we've had children, and it's been more of like a family vacation. It's harder to jump on a plane and go cross country. But even with beach trips, like apparently we like to vacation in March because our anniversary is in March. I think that's the main thing, but it serves us well because oftentimes things are cheaper. Like we went to 30A and Rosemary Beach for a baby moon when we were pregnant with our second daughter, Annie. And it was also our anniversary trip. We just combined those two things. And what even is a baby moon? Like that's such a modern thing, right? But we ended up getting a much better deal because that's a pretty pricey place to vacation to for an average Joe. And we were there with all the snowbirds that fly back up north when the season actually hits. We actually were there like 2 weeks before spring break, so everything was starting to open up, but not everything was quite there yet. So it worked out in our favor but we also didn't have to pay the price tag for it. Now I will say the beaches are colder, obviously, that time of year, but as I've said, we are not really beach people, so that does not bother me. Like, I want to be able to wear a sweater or a sweatshirt on the beach. That's just who I am. I think it's so cozy to walk in the sand, to see the beautiful sunrises and sunsets, to read a book in a nice beach chair. I do not care a thing about getting in the ocean. There's a lot of life out there that I cannot see, and I don't care about getting in. My husband is different. He likes going way out into the ocean, and I cannot watch him. It stresses me out. But for me, it does not bother me to go to the beach when it's not hot outside. I don't want it to be freezing and the wind be like slapping me in the face like painfully, or to be blowing sand like little pellets coming out of a BB gun. Like, that's not what I'm interested in. I've been to the beach in those situations and I don't enjoy it. But for the most part, beaching in late winter, early spring, or spring does not bother me at all. I actually rather enjoy it. For beach trips especially, we try our best to stay in houses or condos that have kitchens, because it is just, first of all, you feel like junk when you just eat out all the time, or at least I do. Maybe some don't, but I do. And so I am not here for that. I'm not interested in feeling like junk when I'm on vacation, trying to feel rested and restored. But also, it just saves money. It really does. Even though like the grocery store we went to last night was a bit more pricey than our grocery stores back home, it's still cheaper than the restaurant prices around here. So it's just better. And we also tend to have a bunch of leftovers when we do eat out, so that ends up being our lunch for the next day. So all in all, on like a 4 or 5 day trip, we may eat out 3 or 4 times. And that's not always like dinner. We're not super strict about that. Sometimes we're like, hey, let's go grab breakfast at this place tomorrow morning. And sometimes we're like, hey, let's just eat our leftovers from lunch for dinner tonight. So it's not something that we're like really strict about, but we do try to be prudent, and it saves us a lot in the end. So it makes it much more peaceful. It makes it to where we can do these things more often, and we're still being wise while also getting to have fun and live our life. You know, I see both sides of the coin. What fun is it to work all the time and not ever get to go see any other part of the world, ever get to go have fun exploring a new place with the people that you love most? And then also, like, what fun is it to just work your life away to get to do fun things and not actually enjoy where you live and do life all the time? So there's a balance, and I think that it's important to keep perspective on the fact that none of this is our home, that eternity is our home. And we are blessed with a beautiful world that has so many amazing cultures and places and people that God has gifted us to get to know. I get so giddy about that, because what love, you know, like that God wouldn't make us all the same, that he would make us so different, and then that he would provide means that we can go and see all of his creation. Like, what a dream, what a dream. But at the same time, he has blessed us so much with what we have, and even if we were to have absolutely nothing, we would have so much in him, and we do have so much in him. So it reminds me of the verse that Paul spoke. Let me get my Bible and read it really quickly. Hold on. And it's in Philippians 4:11 through 13. It says, oh, I'm in Colossians, hold on. 11 through 13. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and of facing hunger, of facing abundance and of facing need, that I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So I just think that that's so relevant in so many parts of life, but especially when it comes to wanderlust and wanting to travel, but knowing that maybe we're strapped by finances or obligations, responsibilities, whatever it may be, that contentment is the overall goal. That if we're not, like I've talked about before, if we're not content on a single income, low income budget, we're most likely not going to be content by making more money. If we're not content in our 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, we're probably not really going to be content if we ever get the 6-bedroom, 5-bath home. Like, it doesn't really matter about the material side of things, it's more so the heart side of things. And when we get the heart in check and posture it correctly, then the other things tend to suit us and serve us a lot better than we realized before. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that you will come back next week, because I plan to film a little day in the life of our beach trip, and I'll be sharing that then. So I hope you're having a great day wherever you're at, and I'll catch you next time. Bye guys.